When I was looking for my late wife's necklace, the only thing I had left of her, my son coldly announced, "The necklace has been sold. I needed the money for a vacation." Shocked by his betrayal, I called the pawn shop to get it back. They said, "Sir, you won't believe what we found when we opened the locket on the pendant. This secret revealed the truth about my family. My name is Samuel Phillips. I'm 58 years old, and this is how I learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones waiting for you to die." I stood in my bedroom, staring at the empty velvet box, my hands trembling against the open drawer. The box sat there like an accusation, its cream satin interior holding nothing but the ghost of what should have been there. Maggie's necklace, the gold chain with the heart locket she'd worn every single day for 35 years, gone. You have to understand, that necklace wasn't just jewelry, it was Maggie. Every morning for 3.5 decades, I'd watch her fasten that clasp behind her neck before she headed off to her nursing shifts at Tampa General. Even on her days off, even when she was sick, that heart locket rested against her collarbone. It became part of her, like her laugh or the way she hummed while cooking breakfast. Downstairs, David's voice cut through the morning air with sharp commands about breakfast. His son Tyler's laughter boomed from the living room, some video game announcer yelling underneath. Angela's phone conversation drifted up the stairs, complaints about being stuck here, about Tampa being boring, about wanting to get back to Orlando already. Today was Maggie's birthday, 3 years since she'd passed, and I'd planned to spend the morning alone with that necklace, the only piece of her I had left that still felt warm somehow. Instead, I faced this hollow box and the chaos of my family treating my home like their personal hotel. The house felt wrong with them in it. This place Maggie and I had built together, room by room, memory by memory, had become something else entirely. The living room where we'd watch Sunday football was now Tyler's gaming station, energy drink cans scattered across the coffee table we'd bought for our first anniversary. The kitchen where Maggie had taught me to make her grandmother's cornbread recipe now smelled like whatever fast food Angela had brought home the night before. I pulled the drawer out completely, dumping socks onto the bed. Nothing. Got on my knees, checked under the dresser. Dust and an old receipt from Home Depot. My chest tightened. I moved to the closet, patting down coat pockets, checking shoeboxes on the shelf. My breathing came faster. This wasn't the first time something had gone missing. Over the past 3 years, since they'd moved in after Maggie's funeral, things had disappeared. Small things at first. A watch that had belonged to my father. Some silver dollars I'd been collecting. I'd told myself I was misplacing them, that grief was making me forgetful. But deep down, I knew. The bathroom next. I yanked open the medicine cabinet, pulled out the drawers beneath the sink. Q-tips scattered across the tile floor. Where was it? Where was it? I checked impossible places. The nightstand drawer I'd already searched twice. Behind the headboard, under the mattress. My hands shook harder now. That steady tremor of panic I hadn't felt since the hospital. Since those last hours with Maggie, when nothing I did could stop what was coming. 35 years of marriage. I'd met Maggie at a USO dance in 1987, fresh out of my Army service, working construction in Tampa. She was 23, just graduated nursing school, with eyes that saw right through the tough guy act I'd been putting on since I got back from overseas. We danced to Love Song by Tesla, and I knew before the song ended that I was going to marry this woman, and that necklace was all I'd kept when she died. Her clothes donated, her books given to the library, her garden tools rusting in the shed because I couldn't bear to use them. But the necklace, I kept that in its box, safe, untouched. Except on days like today when I needed to remember her face, her voice, the weight of her head on my shoulder during those last difficult months. I walked downstairs, each step deliberate. In the living room, Tyler sprawled across my couch, feet up on the armrest, bag of chips balanced on his chest. He didn't look up from his phone. 20 years old, supposed to be in college, but he'd dropped out after one semester to find himself. Apparently finding yourself involved living rent-free in your grandfather's house and contributing nothing except attitude and dirty dishes. I stepped over Angela's shopping bags clustered near the stairs, navigated around the coffee table she'd shoved out of place to make room for her yoga mat. Angela, my daughter-in-law for 15 years, who'd started out sweet enough, but had gradually revealed herself to be exactly what Maggie had quietly suspected all along, a user. David stood at the kitchen counter, phone in one hand, beer in the other at 10 in the morning. He was supposed to be job hunting. Hadn't worked construction in 8 months since he threw out his back, but somehow his back felt fine when he needed to move furniture around my house or lift cases of beer from the garage. "David," I said, "have you seen—" "I'm busy, Dad." He didn't look up from his phone, scrolling through what looked like job listings, but was probably Facebook. That's what David did these days. Pretended to look for work while actually doing everything except looking for work. It's important. "Maggie's necklace is—" "Check your room. You probably forgot where you put it." The dismissal in his voice cut deep. This was my son, the boy I'd taught to throw a football, the kid who used to help me rebuild car engines in the garage on weekends. But somewhere along the way, that eager little boy had been replaced by this bitter man who saw his father as nothing more than a free meal ticket. "I did check my room," I said, working to keep my voice level. "I've checked everywhere. The necklace is gone." He sighed. That particular exhale he'd perfected over the past 3 years since they'd moved in. The one that said I was an inconvenience, a burden he'd graciously agreed to shoulder, like he was doing me some kind of favor by living in my house, eating my food, using my utilities, and contributing absolutely nothing. "No one wants your old stuff, Dad. It was your mother's." My throat felt tight. "The only thing I kept. Then you should have been more careful with it." I stood there watching him drink beer at 10 a.m., and something in my chest went cold. Not hot anger, cold, like the temperature dropping before a storm. This was the same kid who used to crawl into bed with Maggie and me during thunderstorms, scared of the lightning. The same boy who cried when we had to put down our old dog, Rex. But that boy was gone, replaced by this stranger who spoke to me like I was senile. You know what the worst part was? I could see Maggie in his face, the shape of his eyes, the curve of his jaw when he was thinking. But none of her warmth, none of her kindness. It was like looking at a photograph where someone had erased all the light. "David, please." I made myself say it quietly. "I need to know what happened to it." He finally stopped scrolling, set down the beer, turned to face me. His eyes held no warmth at all. Hadn't in years, really. But I'd been fooling myself, hadn't I? Telling myself this was just a rough patch, that things would get better once he found steady work, once the stress of unemployment eased up. "Fine," he said. "I sold it. Desert Gold Pawn Shop over on Dale Mabry. We needed $800 for Hawaii. You said no when I asked, so I found another way." The words didn't make sense at first. Sold it. My son sold Maggie's necklace. The one thing I'd asked him to leave alone when they moved in. The one thing that was off limits, sacred. "You what?" "We needed the money." His voice held no apology, no recognition that he'd done anything wrong. "You said no when I asked for help with the trip, so I took care of it myself." It was just sitting there doing nothing. Just sitting there doing nothing. That's how he saw his mother's memory. That's how he saw the 35 years of love that necklace represented. From the living room, Tyler's voice drifted over, lazy and satisfied. "It was just sitting there, Grandpa. Mom's gone. Dead people don't need jewelry." He didn't even sit up to say it, kept his eyes on his video game, scratched his stomach, reached for another handful of chips. The casual cruelty of it somehow made it worse than if he'd been angry or confrontational. This was just obvious to him. Of course they'd sold it. Why wouldn't they? This is my grandson talking. The baby Maggie used to rock to sleep. The toddler she'd read bedtime stories to. The little boy who called her Grandma Maggie and made her heart light up every time he visited. Now he spoke about her like she was a stranger, like her memory meant nothing. On the stairs, Angela laughed, that bright, empty sound of someone who finds genuine pain hilarious. "Sam, you're being dramatic. It's just a necklace. David got us an awesome vacation. Just a necklace." 35 years of marriage reduced to just a necklace by a woman who'd been in the family for 15 years and should have known better. Should have understood what that piece of jewelry meant to me. I looked at her, really looked. 38 years old, my daughter-in-law for 15 years, and she had the same empty eyes as her husband. When had that happened? Or had I just been refusing to see it? Had I been so desperate to keep my family together after Maggie died that I'd ignored all the warning signs? "Your mother wore that every day for 35 years, I said quietly. Tyler shrugged, already turning away, phone back to his ear. "Well, now someone else gets to wear it. Circle of life or whatever. Circle of life. He was quoting Disney movies while talking about selling his grandmother's most precious possession. The disconnect was staggering. This kid had grown up knowing Maggie, had been loved by her, had received countless Christmas and birthday gifts from her, and this was how he honored her memory. I stood in my kitchen in the house Maggie and I had bought in 1987, the house we'd filled with 35 years of memories, and looked at these three people, my son, his wife, his son. They stared back with the collective expression of people waiting for an inconvenience to remove itself. These were the people I'd been supporting for 3 years. The people I'd opened my home to because I thought family meant something. Because Maggie had always said, family comes first, no matter what. I turned and walked to my bedroom, closed the door behind me with a soft click, sat on the edge of the bed. The empty velvet box sat on the dresser where I'd left it. I picked it up, opened it, closed it, opened it again. The mechanical motion calmed something in me. Or maybe it wasn't calm. Maybe it was something else entirely. My hands had stopped trembling. I sat there for a long time, the box resting on my knees, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not breaking. I'd broken 3 years ago when Maggie died. This was different. This was a settling, a hardening, a clarity I hadn't possessed an hour ago. You know what they don't tell you about losing your spouse? It's not just the grief. It's how everyone else changes around you. Suddenly you're not Samuel and Maggie anymore. You're just Samuel. And apparently just Samuel is someone people feel comfortable stealing from. They'd sold Maggie's necklace for a vacation. David had gone into my bedroom, into my private drawer, taken the one thing I treasured and exchanged it for spending money. And Tyler and Angela saw nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. I thought about Maggie's last weeks, how she'd made me promise to take care of David if he ever needed help. He's our son, she'd whispered from her hospital bed. No matter what, he's our son. I'd held her hand and promised. Because that's what you do when the love of your life is dying. You promise anything. But Maggie never could have imagined this. She never could have pictured David rifling through our bedroom, looking for things to sell. She'd raised him better than that. We'd raised him better than that. I stood, placed the box carefully back on the dresser, and reached for my phone on the nightstand. My hand stayed steady as I opened the browser and typed pawn shops Tampa. The military taught me a lot of things. How to stay calm under pressure, how to assess a situation and develop a plan, how to execute that plan methodically, step by step, until the mission was complete. Right now, my mission was simple. Get Maggie's necklace back. I started calling. The first shop, Lucky Star Pawn, didn't have it. The woman who answered sounded bored, like she dealt with desperate people all day long. Gold heart locket? Nah, honey, haven't seen anything like that. The second shop, Cash Express, put me on hold for 6 minutes before telling me no. Muzak played while I waited, some instrumental version of Love Song by Tesla. The irony wasn't lost on me. That was our song, mine and Maggie's, the song we danced to the night we met. The third shop had closed permanently. The fourth didn't answer. I sat on my bed for each call, describing the necklace the same way every time. Gold chain, heart locket. Inscription inside reads, Forever S and M, 14 karat, sold yesterday probably. Each time I thanked them politely and moved to the next number. David's voice occasionally drifted up from downstairs, giving orders to someone. Angela's laughter floated through the walls. Tyler's video games provided a steady background of explosions and gunfire. I ignored it all. This was bigger than their noise now. The fifth call went to voicemail. The sixth rang and rang. Then the seventh call changed everything. Desert Gold. Pawn, this is Harold. I'm looking for a gold necklace with a heart locket, I said. It was sold to you yesterday. A pause. Oh yes, I remember that piece. Beautiful craftsmanship. Are you the husband? My chest tightened. I am. My wife passed 3 years ago. I'm very sorry for your loss, sir. His voice held genuine sympathy, something I hadn't heard from my own family in months. There's something you should know about that locket. I straightened. What do you mean? When I was examining it, the locket opened. There was a small note inside. The room tilted slightly. A note? I didn't know it opened. I removed it carefully. Didn't want to damage it. Has numbers written on it. Bank something. 35 years of marriage. And I'd never known the locket opened. Maggie had worn it against her skin every single day, and I'd never thought to look for a clasp, never tried to open it. What else hadn't I noticed? What else had my wife kept from me? Did you tell the man who sold it? I asked. He was already gone when I discovered it. Honestly, I'm not sure he knew the locket opened either. He seemed in a hurry, kept checking his phone, said something about needing to get to the bank before it closed. Of course he had. David racing to convert my wife's jewelry into vacation money, probably already mentally spending it on Mai Tais and hotel rooms. He wouldn't have taken the time to examine what he was selling. To him, it was just old gold, just another asset to liquidate. Sir? Harold's voice brought me back. Are you still there? Yes, I'm here. I need to buy it back. How much? Well, I gave him 800 $. Fair value is closer to $1,200. It's 14-karat gold, and the craftsmanship is exceptional, but given the circumstances, I'll pay the $1,200, I said quickly. When can I get it? Come by any time before 6. I'll hold it for you. And, sir, he paused, I won't resell this to anyone else. Some things are too important for that. I thanked him, got the address, and sat for a moment looking at the phone in my hand. Maggie had hidden something in that locket, a note with bank information. After 35 years of marriage, my wife had secrets I'd never suspected. The drive to the pawn shop took 45 minutes in Tampa traffic. I programmed the address into my phone's GPS and followed the calm voice through familiar streets turned strange by purpose. Strip malls and auto shops and the occasional palm tree. Tampa spreading out flat and humid in every direction, the city where Maggie and I had built our life together. I thought about the early days while I drove, how we'd saved for 2 years to buy that house, both of us working double shifts. Me pulling overtime on construction sites, Maggie picking up extra hours at the hospital. We'd eat peanut butter sandwiches for lunch and split a can of soup for dinner, but we were happy. We had a plan, a future we were building together, brick by brick. That first night in our new house, we'd sat on the living room floor eating Chinese takeout because we couldn't afford furniture yet. Maggie had looked around at the empty rooms and said, "This is going to be perfect, Sam. We're going to fill this place with so much love." And we did. Room by room, year by year, we made it ours. David's first steps in that hallway. Christmas mornings around the tree we'd put up in the corner by the window. Thanksgiving dinners that started with just the 3 of us and grew as the years went on. That house held 35 years of memories, and now it felt like a museum of everything we'd lost. Desert Gold Pawn occupied a corner storefront between a nail salon and a tax preparation office. Bars on the windows, but clean bars, a neat sign. The kind of place that dealt with people's desperation professionally, but with dignity. Inside, the shop smelled like old leather and metal polish. Glass cases lined the walls, filled with jewelry and watches and cameras. Stories in every item, I figured. Wedding rings from failed marriages, musical instruments from abandoned dreams, tools from men who couldn't work anymore. A small man in his 50s stood behind the counter, gray hair neatly trimmed, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when I entered, and I could see him sizing me up, trying to figure out if I was there to buy, sell, or cause trouble. "Mr. Phillips?" he asked. "That's me, Harold Garrison." He extended his hand, and I shook it. Firm grip, calloused palms. A working man's hands. "Let me get your necklace." He disappeared into a back room and returned carrying a small bundle wrapped in soft cloth. He unfolded it carefully on the counter, like he was handling something sacred. And there it was. Maggie's necklace. The gold catching the fluorescent light. Looking exactly as I remembered it, looking against her collarbone every morning for 35 years. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was like seeing her again. The young man who sold it, Harold said quietly, early 40s, seemed in a hurry. Didn't want to negotiate, didn't want to hear about proper value, just wanted cash fast. He paused, studying my face. "Your son?" I didn't answer that directly. What did he say when he brought it in? Said it belonged to his mother, that she'd passed away, and the family needed to liquidate some assets. I see that story a lot, unfortunately. People going through their parents' things, turning memories into money. Harold's voice held no judgment, just the weary understanding of someone who'd seen too much human nature. But something about this piece made me look closer. The craftsmanship was too good, too personal. That's when I found the clasp. He gestured to the locket. "Would you like to see?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. Harold picked up the necklace with gentle hands, turned the heart locket to show me a tiny indentation on the side, so small I'd never noticed it before, hidden in the decorative scrollwork. "You press here," he said, demonstrating. The locket sprang open with a soft click. Inside, rolled impossibly tight, was a piece of paper no bigger than my pinky nail. Harold had already removed it, placed it in a small envelope for safekeeping. "Bank information," he said, sliding the envelope across the counter. "Looks like account numbers, maybe a safety deposit box." My hands trembled as I picked up the envelope. After 35 years of marriage, Maggie had kept secrets from me. Important secrets, judging by how carefully she'd hidden this note. "I gave him $800 because that's fair for the wait," Harold continued. "But I knew immediately it was worth more. The sentimental value, though, that's priceless. You can't put a number on that." I pulled out my wallet and counted out $1,200 in bills. Harold had already prepared the paperwork. Simple receipt, no questions asked. "Take care of it this time," he said gently as he handed me the necklace. "I will," I managed. "Thank you for understanding." He nodded. Some things are too important to treat like just another transaction. I drove 3 blocks before I had to pull over. My hands were shaking again, emotion flooding back now that the task was complete and I was alone. I parked in a shopping center lot, truck facing the afternoon sun, streaming through the windshield. The necklace felt heavier than I remembered. I held it up to the light, turning it slowly, looking at it with new eyes. Maggie had worn this every day for 35 years, and all that time it had contained a secret she'd never shared with me. I opened the envelope Harold had given me, unrolled the tiny piece of paper against my thigh. Maggie's handwriting, microscopic but unmistakable. SunTrust Bank, Box 4782. I sat in my truck staring at those words until the sun shifted and the windshield glare became too much. Maggie had a safety deposit box at SunTrust Bank, box number 4782, and she'd never told me. I drove home in a daze, parked in the driveway, walked past my family, still planted in their same positions like permanent fixtures, up to my bedroom. I stood at the window, watching the sun sink toward the horizon, the necklace clutched in one hand, the note in the other. What had Maggie hidden from me, and why? That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, turning the questions over and over, the necklace on my chest where Maggie used to wear it, feeling the slight weight of the gold, wondering what other secrets she'd kept. I thought about our marriage, trying to remember any signs I might have missed. Had there been moments when she seemed secretive? Phone calls that stopped when I entered the room? Unexplained errands? But nothing came to mind. Maggie had always been straightforward, honest to a fault. If she'd hidden something from me, she must have had a damn good reason. Around 3 a.m., I got up and pulled out our old photo albums, page after page of memories. Our wedding day at the little chapel on Bayshore Boulevard, David as a baby, then a toddler, then a gangly teenager, family vacations to Disney World, and camping trips to the Everglades, birthdays, Christmases, ordinary Tuesday afternoons that had seemed unremarkable at the time, but now looked precious. In every photo where Maggie appeared, there was the necklace. Our engagement pictures, wedding portraits, hospital shots when David was born. Even in the casual snapshots, the gold heart locket rested against her throat like a talisman. I found a photo from David's high school graduation, 2001. Maggie beaming with pride, her arm around our son in his cap and gown. David smiling genuinely for once, before life had beaten the optimism out of him. Back when he still had dreams, still believed in working hard and doing the right thing. Before he'd learned it was easier to take than to earn. What had happened to that boy? When had he become the man who would steal from his own father? Morning came slowly. I showered, dressed in my good khakis and a button-down shirt, and drove downtown to SunTrust Bank's main branch on Kennedy Boulevard. The building rose 8 stories, glass and steel. Intimidating in that way all banks are designed to be. I walked through the revolving door into a marble lobby that echoed with quiet conversations and clicking heels. Everything was beige and professional, the kind of place where important financial decisions got made by people in expensive suits. A young woman at the information desk looked up with a professional smile. Her name tag read, Lisa. She couldn't have been much older than Tyler, but she carried herself with the competence my grandson would never possess. "I need to access a safety deposit box," I said. "Of course. Do you have the box number and identification?" I showed her Maggie's death certificate. I'd brought it, some instinct telling me I'd need it, and my driver's license. Lisa examined both documents carefully, typing information into her computer, professional, thorough, taking her job seriously. The kind of work ethic I'd tried to instill in David and Tyler, apparently without success. "I'll need to see your ID and your wife's death certificate. You're listed as surviving spouse." "Yes." "Married 35 years. She typed more information, nodding. "The box was opened last in 2019, 4 years ago. No activity since then, 2019. Maggie had been diagnosed with cancer in early 2022. She'd set this up 3 years before she got sick, before either of us knew what was coming. But somehow she'd known to prepare for something. My wife passed in 2022, I said. She must have set this up before she got sick." Lisa's professional mask softened slightly. "I'm sorry for your loss. Take all the time you need in the privacy room, Mr. Phillips. I'll walk you through the process." She led me through a heavy door into a vault room, walls lined with metal drawers, each with 2 keyholes. The room felt like a mausoleum, cold and quiet, filled with other people's secrets. Lisa used her key and the box number to slide out a long metal container. She handed it to me, heavier than I expected, and guided me to a small windowless room with a table and chair. "I'll be outside when you're finished," she said quietly, and closed the door. I sat alone, the metal box on the table in front of me, and couldn't make myself open it. My hands rested on either side of it, feeling the cold metal, and I thought about Maggie 4 years ago, coming to this same room, putting something inside this box, locking it away without telling me. What had driven her to such secrecy? What had she known that I didn't? Finally, I lifted the lid. Stacks of cash. 100 bills in envelopes, organized with rubber bands. I counted quickly, my construction worker's hands steady despite the shock. 18,500. And underneath it all, a sealed envelope with my name in Maggie's careful handwriting. Samuel. I picked up the letter, held it against my chest with my eyes closed. She'd known. Somehow she'd known something was wrong, known I'd need. And this known David would turn out exactly as he had. The weight of the money, the careful organization, the letter with my name on it, this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was years of planning, years of preparing for a future she'd seen coming, but I'd been too blind to recognize. My hands found the envelope seal. I broke it carefully, unfolded 2 pages of Maggie's handwriting. "My dearest Samuel, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you found what I've hidden. I saved this money over 30 years, small amounts from each paycheck you never noticed. Don't be angry with me for the secrecy. I did it because I love you, and I know what's coming." The first lines hit me like a physical blow. Her voice came through so clearly I could almost hear it, that slight rasp she had developed in her 50s from too many years of hospital air, the way she'd pause between thoughts when she was choosing her words carefully. "David has always been difficult. Remember when he was 28 and demanded we pay for his wedding, then didn't invite your brother because he couldn't give an expensive gift? I saw his true nature then. The way he treats people as transactions, the way nothing is ever enough. I did remember. Maggie had been upset for weeks, but I'd dismissed it as normal wedding stress, mother-son tension. I'd made excuses for David, said he was just nervous about the big day. But Maggie had seen what I'd refused to acknowledge. I watched him grow up expecting everything to be handed to him. Every time you gave him money to fix his mistakes, every time you bailed him out of trouble, I wanted to say something. But you were trying so hard to be the father you never had, and I didn't want to break your heart by telling you what I saw. My father had walked out when I was 12, just up and left one Tuesday morning while I was at school. I came home to find my mother crying at the kitchen table and a note on the counter saying he'd found himself a better life. I'd sworn I'd never do that to my own son, never abandon him no matter what. But maybe I'd gone too far in the other direction. Maybe all that helping and supporting and second chances had created the monster who'd just stolen his mother's necklace for vacation money. After I'm gone, he'll see you as nothing more than a resource to drain. Angela will encourage it. She's always been a user. You know that, even if you won't say it. And Tyler learns from his parents. I'm sorry to write these things, but you need to hear them. my jaw clenched. Maggie had tried to warn me subtly over the years. Little comments I'd brushed aside as over-criticism, as a mother being too hard on her daughter-in-law. But she'd seen clearly what I'd refused to acknowledge. These savings are for you, my dear. $18,500 to protect yourself when you finally see what I saw. I took small amounts from my paychecks, telling you I was putting them into our joint savings. But I was putting them here instead, building you a safety net for the day you'd need to choose between their comfort and your dignity. How had I not noticed? All those years of her working night shifts at Tampa General, picking up extra hours, and I'd thought it was just her dedication to nursing. But she'd been saving every spare dollar, planning for this moment. Don't let them turn you into a victim. You're stronger than you know. You served your country with honor. You built things with your hands that lasted. You raised that boy the best you could, but he chose his path, and you're not responsible for his choices. I stopped reading for a moment, pressed the letter against my chest. Maggie's words felt like absolution I hadn't known I desperately needed. For 3 years, I'd been blaming myself for David's failures, wondering where I'd gone wrong as a father. Be strong, live for yourself, the house, the money, everything. It's yours. You worked for it. Don't let them take it out of guilt or obligation. You've given enough, you've sacrificed enough. Now, it's time to protect what's left. I thought about all the loans I'd made to David over the years, the car repairs, the credit card payments, the emergencies that always seemed to happen right before they wanted to take a vacation. How much had I given them? 10,000? 15? More? I wish I could be there to protect you, but I trust you'll know what to do when the time comes. You've always been methodical, careful, thorough. Use those strengths now. Document everything. Plan everything. Don't be pushed around. Methodical, careful, thorough. Military training habits that had served me well in construction work. Measure twice, cut once. Plan the foundation before you worry about the roof. Every job had steps, and every step had to be done right, or the whole project would fail. And know that I love you more than anything in this world. You gave me 35 years of happiness, and I want you to have many more years of peace. Don't let them steal that from you. Forever yours, Maggie. I sat in that small room and reread certain passages. The wedding incident, the warning about Angela, the instructions to be strong. Every word felt like validation I hadn't known I desperately needed. Maggie had seen everything, understood everything, and she'd prepared for this moment, even dying. Even in those last awful months of chemotherapy and hospitals and pain, she'd been thinking about my future, my protection. I folded the letter precisely, placed it in my jacket pocket over my heart. The cash stayed in the box for now, too much to carry safely, and I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it. But I knew one thing. Maggie hadn't saved this money for David's family to spend on Hawaii vacations. I stood, pushed the chair in, opened the door. Lisa looked up from her desk. All finished, Mr. Phillips? Yes. Thank you for your help. You're welcome. If you need to access the box again, just call ahead. I walked through the marble lobby, my footsteps echoing. Outside, afternoon. Sunlight hit me like a wall, harsh and unforgiving after the climate-controlled bank interior. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, staring through the windshield at the parking garage's concrete wall opposite me, not really seeing it. Maggie always having my back. Even now, even from beyond. I touched the necklace under my shirt, felt the warm metal against my skin. The drive home happened on autopilot. Traffic lights, turn signals, merging lanes. At a red light on Dale Mabry, I pressed my palm against the letter in my pocket. A horn blared behind me. The light had turned green. Home looked different when I pulled into the driveway. I sat watching through the front window before I got out. David on the couch, feet tucked under him, phone pressed to his ear, laughing at something. Tyler sprawled in my recliner, the brown leather chair Maggie had bought me for our 30th anniversary. Angela at the kitchen table, bottles of nail polish scattered around her, cotton balls everywhere, painting her nails bright pink. My house, my space, occupied like conquered territory. Yeah, I walked inside. Nobody looked up. They were so comfortable in their assumption that I'd just accept whatever they did, that I'd keep enabling their lifestyle indefinitely. David noticed the necklace first. The chain was visible at my collar, where I'd tucked it inside my shirt. His eyes fixed on it, and his expression hardened. Is that Mom's necklace? You got it back. I touched it protectively. Yes. He stood, phone lowered. Hand it over. We sold it. That makes it ours now. You can't just take it back. The audacity was breathtaking. He'd stolen from me, sold my most precious possession, and now he was demanding I give him the money I'd spent to get it back. I bought it back, paid 1/200. His face flushed. With whose money? You're living on a fixed income. That's our inheritance you're wasting. Our inheritance. As if I were already dead. As if everything I owned already belonged to them. Tyler pushed himself up from my recliner, moved closer. Dad's right. You're spending money that should go to family. It was my wife's necklace. Your dead wife, Tyler said it casually, like commenting on the weather. You've got to move on, Grandpa. Face reality. Reality? This from a 20-year-old who'd never held a steady job, never paid rent, never contributed anything to society except complaints and attitude. Yeah, you're old, Angela chimed in from the table, not looking up from her nails. This house is too big for you anyway. Sign it over now. Save everyone the trouble later. I looked at her, really looked, saw the calculation in her eyes, the barely concealed eagerness. She wasn't even pretending anymore. None of them were. Angela blew on her wet nails. Sam, you're being selfish. We live here rent-free. That's what family does. We take care of each other. Is that what this was? Care? Taking care of each other? I'd been paying every bill, buying every meal, fixing every problem for 3 years. What exactly had they taken care of besides themselves? Is that what this is? I asked quietly. Care? Nobody answered that. David crossed his arms. Tyler's jaw worked like he wanted to say more, but couldn't quite find the words. Angela kept painting her nails like we weren't even having a conversation. I walked to my bedroom and closed the door. The soft click of the latch felt final somehow. I sat on the bed, took out Maggie's letter, unfolded it, reread the final paragraph. Document everything. Plan everything. Don't be pushed around. I placed the letter carefully in my nightstand drawer. From my desk, I retrieved a yellow legal pad and pen. Sat down at the desk Maggie had bought at an estate sale years ago, the surface scarred but solid. At the top of the first page, I wrote March 17th, actions taken. Below it, I began a list. The first item, 1, document everything. I opened my laptop, created a new folder labeled Evidence. Then I started with what I could prove immediately. Bank statements showing every loan I'd made to David over the past 3 years. Utility bills with my name on them, never reimbursed. Property tax records showing my sole ownership of the house. This was going to take time, but I had something now that I hadn't had this morning, clarity. Maggie's letter had given me permission to stop being a victim, to stop making excuses for people who saw me as nothing more than a resource to exploit. I spent the next 2 hours going through financial records, creating a spreadsheet that tracked every dollar I'd loaned to David's family. Car repairs, $500, emergency dental, $1,200, investment opportunity, $2,000, Christmas money, $800, vacation fund, $1,500, on and on, month after month. By the time I finished, the total was staggering, $12,800 over 3 years, not one penny repaid. And that didn't include the free room and board, the utilities, the groceries, the countless other expenses they had shifted onto my shoulders. At current rental rates, they should have been paying at least $100 a month for the space they occupied in my house. Times 36 months, that was another $39,600 in value they had received. I was looking at over $50,000 in support I'd provided to people who responded by stealing from me. Around midnight, I made another decision. If Maggie had taught me anything, it was to be prepared. And being prepared meant having evidence of what was really happening in my house. I researched Florida law carefully. Single-party consent for recording, my house, my right to secure it. I found a camera system online that disguised itself as a smoke detector, ordered it with 2-day shipping, express delivery. The old Samuel would have felt guilty about recording his family. The new Samuel, the one with $18,500 in cash and a letter from his dead wife warning him about exactly this situation, felt no guilt at all. The camera arrived 2 days later. I waited until everyone left the house, David to his supposed job hunting, Angela to her part-time work at the dental office, Tyler to hang out with friends who were probably just as directionless as he was. The installation took an hour. I'd watched a tutorial on YouTube twice, then carefully removed the old smoke detector in the living room corner. The new unit looked identical, but contained a wide-angle camera lens barely visible behind the white plastic grating. I mounted it, tested the connection on my phone. Perfect view of the couch, the kitchen entrance, most of the main floor. The resolution was crystal clear, good enough to read facial expressions, catch conversations. I felt no guilt. This was my home, my property. They'd forfeited any expectation of privacy the moment they started plotting how to take everything from me. The recordings proved valuable quickly. That very evening, I sat at my bedroom desk, door locked, laptop open, watching. David's voice came through clearly. I can't believe he spent $200 on that necklace. That's our money he's throwing away. Tyler from the couch. He's being selfish. Old people get like that. When this house is ours, first thing I'm doing is getting a new big screen. This place is stuck in the Stone Age. Might not have to wait too long, Angela added from the kitchen. He's what, 58? How many years he got left, really? Especially if his health starts going downhill. The casual way they discussed my death, like it was an inconvenience they were waiting for, made my blood run cold. These weren't family members concerned about my well-being. These were vultures circling, waiting for the feast. I saved the clip, labeled it carefully. Evidence Wamwo. Inheritance discussion. MP4. Another clip from the next day showed Tyler on the phone with a friend sitting on my stairs. My grandpa is such a pain. He got all weird about my dad selling some old necklace. The friend's voice was faint but audible. Why'd your dad sell it? We needed Hawaii money. Grandpa wouldn't give it to us, so Dad took care of it himself. Honestly, I'll be glad when this house is ours and we don't have to deal with his drama. The friend laughed. How much longer you think? I don't know, but he's getting older. And he's been more forgetful lately. Maybe we can get him declared incompetent or something. I saved that clip too. Evidence of their long-term planning, their complete lack of respect, their willingness to destroy my reputation to get what they wanted. Over the next 2 weeks, I became methodical about documentation. I photographed every room showing their belongings spread everywhere. David's work boots by the door. He didn't work. Angela's makeup covering every inch of bathroom counter space. Tyler's gaming equipment taking over what used to be Maggie's craft room. I documented the financial abuse systematically. Every unpaid utility bill. Every grocery receipt showing food I'd bought that they'd consumed. Every loan that had never been repaid. The pattern was clear and undeniable. For 3 years, they'd treated me like their personal ATM while contributing absolutely nothing. On March 25th, I caught David going through my mail. I'd hidden a small camera in the kitchen, disguised as a coffee maker accessory. The footage showed him opening bank statements, credit card offers, anything that might contain financial information. When I found several pieces of my mail hidden in the kitchen drawer under dish towels, I photographed everything. Federal crime, mail tampering. David was escalating, getting desperate for information about my accounts and assets. I called my bank that afternoon. Marcus, a young professional at SunTrust, pulled up my account information. Has anyone attempted to access my accounts recently? I asked. He typed on his computer, frowned. Actually, yes. There was an attempt last week, March 20th. A man claiming to be your son said he had power of attorney. We denied access because he couldn't provide proper documentation. March 20th. The same day I'd installed the living room camera, David had tried to drain my accounts while I was beginning to gather evidence against him. I need you to flag my account for fraud attempts, I said. And I want documentation of every access attempt. Of course, Mr. Phillips. I'll also recommend changing your passwords and security questions. I did all of that, then asked him to print out the security log. David's attempt was right there in black and white, time-stamped and documented. By early April, my evidence folder had grown thick. Video clips, photographs, financial records, bank security logs. Everything organized with military precision. Each piece of evidence cross-referenced and labeled. I sat at my desk one evening, the folder open before me, and knew it was time for the next phase. I picked up my phone, searched elder law attorneys Tampa. Patricia Lawson's practice appeared near the top of the results, protecting senior rights, experienced elder law attorney, 25 years fighting elder abuse. I called the next morning. Her receptionist scheduled me for April 8th at 2 p.m. Can you give me an idea what this is regarding? The receptionist asked. Financial elder abuse by family members, I said, and I have extensive documentation. Ms. Lawson will want to see everything you have. Bring all records, photographs, any evidence of the abuse. I spent the next few days organizing my evidence folder even more thoroughly. Timeline of events, financial spreadsheets, video clips burned to DVD, photographs printed and labeled, bank statements highlighted to show the pattern of loans and fraud attempts. This wasn't just about getting them out of my house anymore. This was about justice, about holding people accountable for their actions, about protecting other elderly people from the same kind of exploitation. Maggie's letter had opened my eyes, but my military training was guiding my actions. Every mission needed intelligence, planning, and decisive execution. I'd gathered the intelligence. Now it was time to plan the attack. The office building downtown rose 12 stories, glass and steel reflecting the Florida sky. I parked in the garage, took the elevator to the 8th floor. Patricia Lawson's name on a glass door. Neat reception area with leather chairs and legal journals on a side table. The receptionist showed me to Patricia's office. She stood to greet me, late 40s, dark hair pulled back in a professional bun, business suit that meant she took herself seriously. She shook my hand firmly, gestured to a chair across from her organized desk. "Mr. Phillips, tell me what's going on." I placed my evidence folder on her desk. 2 inches thick, everything organized with tabs and labels. My son and his family have been living in my house for 3 years. They don't pay rent or contribute anything to expenses. They've been exploiting me financially, and now they're waiting for me to die so they can take everything. Patricia's expression didn't change. She opened the folder, began reviewing documents, made notes on her own legal pad, asked questions in a sharp, efficient manner that reminded me of military briefings. "Do they pay anything toward household expenses? Not a dollar? Have you asked them to leave? Not formally. I've been hoping they'd figure it out themselves, but that's not happening. Good that you haven't made formal demands yet. We'll do this properly." She continued through the folder, watching video clips on my laptop, examining the financial spreadsheet, reading the bank security logs. 20 minutes of silence except for her occasional questions. Professional, thorough, the kind of person who understood that details mattered. Finally, she looked up. "Mr. Phillips, this documentation is exceptional, very thorough. How long has your son's family lived there?" 3 years since my wife passed. "And they've never paid rent, utilities, or contributed to household expenses?" "Nothing." "David says family doesn't charge family." Patricia nodded, writing. "Under Florida law, they're tenants at will. You can establish rental terms at any time, or request they vacate. What if they refuse to pay? Then we have grounds for eviction. But we do this by the book, everything documented, everything legal." She gestured to the video clips. "This evidence of them discussing your death, planning to inherit your property while you're still alive. That's extremely damaging to any claim they might make about providing care or support. How long does eviction take? If they contest it, maybe 3 months. But with your evidence of their behavior, the financial exploitation documented this thoroughly, I don't think it'll take that long. Most people leave when they realize you're serious." I touched the necklace under my shirt. Maggie's presence still guiding me, still protecting. "There's also the mail tampering," Patricia continued. "That's a federal offense. The bank fraud attempts, those show clear intent to exploit your finances. We're not just talking about eviction here. We're talking about elder abuse charges." What does that mean? It means they could face criminal prosecution. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony in Florida. And with this level of documentation, any prosecutor would jump at the case. She leaned back in her chair, studied me. "Mr. Phillips, I have to ask, are you certain you want to pursue this? These are serious consequences we're talking about. This is your son." I thought about Maggie's letter, about 3 years of being treated like a walking ATM, about David stealing the one thing I treasured most and selling it for vacation money. My wife warned me this would happen. She left me a letter telling me exactly who they really were. I should have listened sooner. Patricia pulled a retainer agreement from her drawer, placed it in front of me with a pen. "My retainer is $2,500. That covers initial filings, drafting the rental agreement, and the first phase of eviction proceedings if needed. What about the criminal charges? I'll refer that to the district attorney's office. With this evidence, they'll likely pursue charges independently. I signed the retainer agreement with a steady hand, my signature firm across the bottom line. Wrote a check for $2,500 from Maggie's secret account. Excellent, Patricia said, filing the paperwork. I'll have the rental agreement drafted by next week. We'll serve it formally and see how they respond. What should I expect? Denial, anger, probably threats. They might claim you're incompetent, try to get guardianship. Standard tactics when people realize their free ride is ending. I'm ready for that. She studied me again. You know, in 25 years of elder law, I've seen a lot of family exploitation cases. Most victims are too scared or too guilt-ridden to fight back. You're different. I had a good teacher, I said, touching the necklace. My wife saw this coming and prepared me for it. Smart woman, the smartest. I stood, shook her hand again. Thank you for taking this seriously. Don't thank me yet. This is just beginning. But Mr. Phillips, you're going to win this. People like your son count on their victims being too passive to fight back. They never expect someone to document everything and fight back with the law. I walked out of her office feeling something I hadn't felt in the 3 years. Hope. Not just hope, but confidence. I had allies now. I had a plan. And I had Maggie's wisdom guiding every step. The war had officially started, but for the first time since this whole mess began, I knew I was going to win. Back home, I found David in the kitchen, beer in hand as usual. He looked up as I entered. Where have you been all afternoon? Running errands, I said calmly. He studied my face, looking for something. You seem different. Do I? Yeah, like, I don't know, more confident or something. I smiled. Maybe I'm finally figuring things out. If only he knew. A week after signing Patricia's retainer, the rental agreement arrived by email. 3 pages, professionally formatted, dense with legal language that would change everything. Rent, $100 monthly, payable by the first of each month. Payment of 50% of utility costs. Respectful behavior toward the property owner and peaceful enjoyment of the premises. 30-day notice period if tenant fails to comply with stated terms. The market rate for comparable space in Tampa ran around $1,500. Patricia had explained the strategy. Make the terms reasonable so no judge could call them punitive. This wasn't about gouging David. This was about establishing my rights as property owner and their status as tenants. I clicked reply, typed, "This is perfect. Let's proceed." Hit send without hesitation. Patricia arranged for official service. On April 12th at 2 p.m., a woman arrived at my door carrying a leather portfolio, professional attire, all business. Deborah Klein, Notary Public. David appeared behind me. "Who's this?" I stepped aside, let Deborah enter. She moved to the dining table, opened her portfolio, removed the rental agreement and her notary seal. "Mr. Phillips, I'm here to serve you with a rental agreement for this property." Deborah's voice carried formal weight. "Please read it and sign acknowledging receipt." David snatched the document. His eyes moved rapidly across the first page. His expression darkened with each line. $1,100 a month plus utilities. "This is insane." "The document outlines terms of continued residency," Deborah said calmly. "You're not required to agree, only to acknowledge you've received it." "I'm not signing anything." Deborah made a notation on her form. "Service is complete regardless. You have 30 days to respond." David whirled on me. "What is this? Some kind of joke? It's a rental agreement, legally required. We're your family. This house belongs to us. This house belongs to me. The deed is in my name. You're tenants." The word hit him like a slap. Tenants, not family members with rights, not co-owners. Tenants. Angela emerged from the living room, took the agreement from David's shaking hands, read it quickly. Her face went white. "You're not thinking clearly, Sam. Maybe you need a doctor to evaluate your mental state. My mental state is fine. We'll see what a judge says. Competency hearing. We'll get guardianship. You're welcome to try." Tyler stepped closer, using his height advantage. "You have no idea what you're starting, old man." For the first time in 3 years, I didn't back down. Military training kicked in. I straightened my shoulders, met his gaze directly. "You have 30 days, I said calmly. "After that, the decision won't be yours anymore. Deborah gathered her materials efficiently, clearly accustomed to hostile situations. She left without ceremony. The door closed behind her with a definitive click. Over the next weeks, they tried everything. David launched systematic intimidation, positioning himself in hallways so I'd have to squeeze past him. Angela transformed into manufactured vulnerability, clutching tissues, eyes swimming with fake tears. Tyler posted on social media, crafting a narrative of victimhood for his followers. But I'd changed. Maggie's letter had given me armor. Every threat, every manipulation attempt, every crocodile tear just strengthened my resolve. On April 28th, David crossed the final line. I was making coffee in the kitchen when he entered, moved too close. When I tried to step around him, he put his hand on my chest and pushed. Not hard enough to knock me down, but enough to make me stumble backward against the counter. Careful, old man. Accidents happen at your age. The hidden camera captured everything. His hand making clear contact, my body forced backward, his threatening tone. That night, I sent the complete evidence package to Patricia. Her response came within minutes. Emergency hearing scheduled for May 8th. They won't know what hit them. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom watching Judge Margaret Stone review documents. Patricia sat beside me, confident and prepared. Across the aisle, David huddled with his attorney, all three avoiding my gaze. Judge Stone looked up, steel gray hair framing sharp eyes. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by Ms. Lawson. The videos are particularly disturbing. David's attorney tried to minimize it. Your Honor, this is a family dispute. Mr. Carlson, assault is assault regardless of family relationship, Judge Stone interrupted. I'm granting the eviction. You have 30 days from today. David started crying, real tears this time. Angela stared straight ahead, stunned. Tyler reached for his phone before the bailiff cleared his throat. Within 2 months, I'd sold the house to a young couple for $289,000. Used part of the proceeds to buy a small condo in a 55-plus community in Clearwater. Security gate, mountain views, people my own age who'd worked hard and earned their peace. I set up a workshop in the spare bedroom, bought new tools, started making things again, built a shadow box for Maggie's necklace, hung it on the living room wall where the gold caught the afternoon light. 6 months later, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset over Tampa Bay. My phone sat silent on the counter. New number, my choice who had it. My bank account showed $167,000, every penny protected and planned for. Tomorrow, I had plans to go fishing with Jim Walsh, another veteran in the complex. Next week, I'd finish a jewelry box I was making for Patricia's daughter. The future was unwritten, and for the first time in years, that felt like freedom rather than fear. I touched my shirt where the necklace used to rest. It was on the wall now, visible, honored, but no longer armor. I didn't need armor anymore. Maggie had been right about everything, and I was finally completely free.